can we entice David McGoldrick out of retirement who's banging them in?
Would you bring back Didsey?
I would. Whether he wants to come back is a different thing. Right?
People give out about that all across the game, that there's not that same bite, that people aren't, going in for 50-50s with the same vigor. Like, Liam has that, and he has that in abundance, where he's not afraid to get stuck in. He's so physical.
And I think if we went O'Brien, Collins, O'Shea, Manning and Queeveen in goal as a back four, I think that would allow Ryan Manning to get forward, and we could pack the midfield that way as well.
Hello and welcome back to Inside the Boys in Green, episode number 6. I am your host, Graham O'Toole, and we are as always joined by Irish football expert Paul Nealon and talkSPORT's Luke Delaney. What an honour to have you on the couch, Luke.
Pleasure to be back, lads. I come in for the big episode.
Yes.
As we're edging closer to the big game, I said, you know what? I'm going to put myself back in the limelight, see if myself and Paul can dissect how the squad's looking.
Well, we are 2 weeks out. It's becoming very real now, that big game against Czechia. Before we get our thoughts on how the squad is looking before that game, let's have a little bit of an Irish roundup over the last week or so. It was FA Cup last weekend, and some good performances for the Irish playing for Southampton, Paul. They had a great result.
Yeah, and Finn Azaz and Ryan Manning are both playing well, and Manning's scoring and providing assists and stuff like that at the right time, coming into a good bit of form, which I think he'll be and has been a crucial part of Heimir Hallgrímsson's plan since he's kind of come in. I think he's really favoured Manning, so to have him playing, and obviously we know Finn Azaz can be a game changer for Ireland as well, so to have the two of them in form coming into this next 2 weeks, touch wood, nothing happens to them, but yeah, it's great to have them in form because we're going to need them big time, and I think they actually are big players for Ireland as well.
Mm-hmm. For anyone not following the championship closely as well, how are they getting on in the championship?
Yeah, well, they're starting to climb the ranks now, and I think they were going through kind of a struggle early on in the season. They changed the manager. Now they've got the new manager in, and now they're actually kind of around September onwards. They started to kind of do well. I obviously spoke to Football Martin, who's Southampton kind of expert, and he was kind of telling me about Southampton since they got the new manager in, and the difference in Finn Azaz. Manning actually wasn't really playing at the time, but now he's got his opportunity. But in terms of their results, they started picking up, and they beat Leicester. I think it was 5-4 the other week, a late win. And the things now, the momentum seems to be with them right now at the crucial kind of part of the season. Now, they'll be looking to kind of get them playoff sort of spots.
Well, it's going to be up to Southampton to try and stop the quad, because they've got Arsenal next in the FA Cup at home in the quarterfinals. But one team that won't be joining them will be Brentford. Last night's defeat on penalties to West Ham, Luke. Not a great night for the Irish.
No, entertaining game nonetheless. I think when any game goes to penalty shootout, especially in a cup competition, we've become so adjusted and accustomed to Queeveen Kelleher pulling out some huge saves. But when you actually look at the calibre of the West Ham penalties last night,
unbelievable.
You could have had 2 Queeveen Kellers in there for a lot of them and he wouldn't have saved them. So tough for them. I think Keith Andrews was even speaking pre-game about how there's a real belief in the squad that they could do well in the FA Cup. You look at Palace last year, you look at the trouble Brentford are causing teams, and they actually probably looked like a team who had a cup run in them. Not to be. They do probably have bigger fish to fry in terms of securing European football for next year in the Premier League. So maybe one less worry for Keith Andrews on one hand, but then, the prospect of winning silverware with the Bees for the first time, that's gone now. So, but yes, it's still looking good for him.
He's coming across so well, Keith Andrews, in the media. I don't know if you saw his post-match interview about Ouattara's penalty miss when he dinked it down the middle to do a Panenka. Like, he seems to have man management down to a T, Paul.
He seems to have media training down to a T as well. I mean, he always says the right things, doesn't he? I mean, every time you kind of come away. I don't know if it's just Irish people feeling this way as well, because I'm seeing a lot of the British media kind of speaking about him, kind of every time he says something, like it's almost like everyone's believing everything he says. And obviously he's backing it up on the pitch and stuff like that. But like, the fact is, he could have came out and he could have slaughtered Ouattara there, and he was just like, no, I'm sick of seeing people getting slated for being the ones to kind of step up and take a penalty. It was refreshing to hear that, because you would hear managers probably previously, or the kind of older style managers would have probably hammered him. So obviously he's this new style of manager, and I think as well with the way Keith's been in the media. He started off in the media and stuff like that. So I think there's an element of he's quite clever in that sense. He kind of knows how to play both sides there, and I think it's refreshing. Just on Brentford, I think it's probably good that they're out of the FA Cup because it means Nathan and Queven can rest up for the World Cup.
It's kind of gone under the radar a little bit, Luke. Collins has been in and out of the Brentford starting 11 over the last month or so. Are you concerned about his form?
Yeah, like it's
Did it start off with a bit of a knock and then he seemed like he was out for longer than expected?
That's it. And like if you look at Ajer, who's come in alongside Sepp Vandenberg the last couple of weeks, they haven't really put a foot wrong, and it's quite difficult. And it's that sort of position on the pitch where you don't want to be chopping and changing too much. And I suppose Keith is probably looking at it from a point of why fix it if it's not broke. But it's definitely difficult for Nathan. Do I think it will jeopardise his position in the Irish team? I don't. I know Alan Judge was on last week and said, if Nathan stays out for a prolonged period, could be looking at like a John Egan type thing. But I think when it comes to the Irish football, we need to get our best players onto the pitch. But it'll be frustrating for Nathan, but it's nothing that he hasn't come across before. There was times when he was at Wolves and even Burnley before where he was in and out of the team a bit, but he'll be looking to get straight back in, but maybe it could be just a matter of waiting a bit more patiently now to get into the side.
Nice goal though. Nice header.
Yes.
Nice header.
And he has that in the locker, and I think it's something that's going to be massive for us. I know you spoke on Ryan Manning earlier. We're not blessed when it comes to set piece and dead ball specialists, and that's something that Ryan Manning's wand of a left foot is going to be really important for us, I think, in these matches, and in terms of we might be, stepping back a bit against Czechia, letting them go on the front foot and us soak up the pressure like we did at times in Hungary and then hit from, set piece and from counter, and that's what Ryan Manning will give us with that left foot and deliveries into areas and getting it into the big men as well. So could we look at a good combination of two of those lads who, could be vital to getting us a goal over in Prague.
Due a goal as well.
He is, yeah. When was the last one? Was it that unreal goal?
It's Ukraine, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him score like a header. Same with Jake O'Brien. I think that one of them two are due a headed goal soon.
Because we used to rely on it so much. Shane
Richard
Duffy.
Dunn and that.
Yeah.
Shane Duffy's a huge one.
Yeah.
He was our main threat for years.
Wasn't there at that time when he got the Ireland goal of the year, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it was the only goal we scored in the calendar year?
They all count.
They all count against Bulgaria. Yeah.
We're going to go to Scotland. It was a big weekend for Liam Scales because he captained Celtic in the Old Firm, in a feisty Old Firm. How did he play?
I thought I think, I don't know how you feel about this, Luke, but I think the Celtic fans are extremely harsh on him, and I think from speaking to a lot of them, they always kind of go on about, Liam Scales, this, that, the other. But I also hear a lot of Celtic fans or fan channels or anything like that going and watch it saying, if he was bought for 5 million from a Brentford or something like that, he would get nowhere near the stick. But because he was signed for like 500,000 from Shamrock Rovers, he gets unbelievable stick. I think just on him, I think it shows the character of him to come through all of that. Like, he wasn't expected to be a mainstay. He went on loan to Aberdeen. He came back. It looked like he was going to be gone. He came in. He helped Celtic win the double under Brendan Rodgers and became a mainstay in the squad. When Nancy came in, for some reason, he took him out. Celtic started leaking goals a good bit, and now he's back in and he's back playing. And I think he's been as solid as ever. And he's also turned up for Ireland in that period as well. Don't forget November. Like, he was huge. The 2 assists, one for Troy against Portugal, one obviously the third goal for Troy as well against Hungary. So I think, like, look, he's not going to be absolutely perfect in any game. Who is, But I think having him there, especially obviously with Ireland, I actually think he provides a good balance because of the left foot when he is there. Well, I'm sure we're going to be talking again about him later on.
Yeah, I think the disrespect he gets, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, if he was brought in for a big fee, if they signed him from maybe a Fulham or a Brighton, they'd be all about him. I'm obviously a bit biased from knowing Liam from a young age, where I do think it's bullshit, but I think it's, from what I've seen of Celtic this year and from watching them in Europe where they've struggled as well, I actually think he's been their best player and most consistent, and it's been a difficult period for them this campaign, but I think he's instrumental to what they do. He's solid, he'll get his head on anything, he'll block anything. People say, they give out about his pass and stuff, but I think he's very assured on the ball. And they're not blessed for options there at centre back either. I don't think Trusty's
keeps getting
the
sent
real
off.
deal. Yeah, Carter Vickers is good, but he's had fitness struggles as well. I know they brought in Simpson Pusey from Man City as well. But every time Celtic seem to brings someone in to take his position, he holds on to it. And it seems to be a real leader in that group as well. And, you know, I loved watching him walk out there to that packed Ibrox and leading Celtic out as well. Because like you said there, it's pretty much full circle, you know, playing for Aberdeen, looked like he was on the way out of Celtic and stuff as well. And, you know, it's testament to him and his character that he's really rise up the ranks.
There's an element of me that's really proud of him as well, 'cause I watched him from UCD to Shamrock Rovers to Celtic, and obviously, as you said, the full circle then. So to see him captain in Celtic and see that image that Celtic put out of him with the captain's armband, you know, celebrating at the end of the game, that's, as Irish people, that's what we want to see. And obviously there's a huge Celtic and Irish connection and stuff like that. So I think there's an element maybe, and Luke's probably the same, it's like, we almost kind of feel hurt when we see people abusing him online or saying things about him and stuff like that. It's just like, well, where, like, what, are you watching the same game? Sometimes I kind of feel like saying, you know?
And yeah, and like that physicality and that eagerness to get stuck in and not be afraid of a challenge. People give out about that all across the game, that there's not that same bite, that people aren't, you know, going in for 50-50s with the same vigor. Like Liam has that, and he has that in abundance, where he's not afraid to get stuck in. He's so physical. He'll put his body on the line for it as well. And I think it's something that this Irish team potentially needs as well. We haven't really had, you know, not saying he's a bit of a bruiser or whatever.
They're too nice.
They are too nice across the pitch, and it's something we always had, a bit of a fucker in the midfield. He wasn't like Glenn Whelan who'd get stuck in.
Snidey bastard, yeah.
And we need that in the team. And like, we're not going to be as technical and as blessed, you know, with natural ability as many other nations. But you can have that bit of bite in you where people don't want it, or they think twice about taking you on. And I think Liam has that. And I'd like to see a bit more of it across the pitch.
Playing in that sort of atmosphere as well is only going to stand to him. Like in the belly of the beast at Ibrox as well. Because I'm sure the atmosphere in Czechia is going to be absolutely unbelievable. And potentially in Mexico City as well in the summer. But can we take a moment for the Celtic fans, which I'm loving them taking over the Tina Turner, Simply the Best.
Unbelievable.
If anyone doesn't know, Rangers walk out to Simply the Best. And over the last couple of seasons, Celtic fans have just started singing it as well. And they really went for it over the weekend. As I probably will say, the last time Celtic fans will be in Ibrox for a long time after what happened after the game.
Can you imagine how rent-free that would be in your head, though? Like, it's like Everton starting to sing You'll Never Walk Alone, taking the piss out of Liverpool. So I'd say serious head loss from Rangers. That's the shithousery you want, though, in rivalries, isn't it? Like, I know we saw the scenes afterwards. And, you know, everyone's saying they're bad scenes or whatever. It was exciting.
Isn't that what you watch football for? Don't we all look at like South America? You don't want anyone to be hurt, but you see the rivalry.
There was killings in South America as well. In Brazil.
Maybe
in Brazil.
Yeah. So
that was a lot worse. 23 players sent off.
How many?
23.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to see that ruined, but you obviously don't want to see fans on the pitch and firing flares into the crowd and all that. But you do want to see, like, before the game, when the Celtic fans then let off all the green, white, and orange like papers down there in the way end. Like, it was unbelievable. You don't want that not to happen in a Old Firm game.
100%. And like, brings eyes on the match as well. You know, they do play.
It was a crap match.
It was a shite game. And like, for a team to play 6 or 7 times a year, I feel like there's an Old Firm every couple of weeks.
0-0 and then to go to penalties as well.
Yeah. But I know commentary and stuff is like, oh, it's, you know, scenes we don't want to see. We all secretly really enjoyed that, as much as we might not admit it. Paul, you definitely did. You enjoyed watching it?
I always enjoy it, to be honest.
We'll go to the Championship. We're going to talk more about our problems in midfield very soon, but it is good to see Alan Brown back on the score sheet, Paul.
Yeah, and I think the key thing about him, and I think he definitely has to come back into the squad, is that he can play midfield or right wing back, and that's probably 2 areas that in which we're going to probably need players. Well, we are going to need players, let's be honest. Midfield's been a worry, but the fact is, I think the month before last, he won the Championship Player of the Month. He's scoring goals, he looks comfortable again, and he's playing it kind of a mixture of that right wing back and centre mid. So I think, again, another player who's come in, we spoke off air about how he could be crucial for Ireland because he does love a goal. So yeah, I think he could be near on starting come the Czechia game, if I'm being honest.
I'd start him. I think I would. I think he has experience as well. Like, he's been around the block for Ireland, like you said there with the goals as well. That's invaluable as well. Like, you hear a lot of chatter about, I know Boston Noel isn't available, but, you know, do you bring him in, or do you bring in a Connor Coventry like to replace Josh Cullen? they're not as experienced as Alan Brown, and you don't really want to be going into potentially Ireland's biggest match in over a decade with players who are, under 4 or 5 caps. And I think Alan will bring that. And like you said there, he's on form, and you can't say that probably about a lot of the options in around that position.
And probably the player who would have been odds on to replace Josh Cullen and Jason Malumbi is not having a good time. West Brom. They are flirting relegation if anybody isn't keeping a close eye on the Championship, Luke.
Yeah, it's when you look at the size of the club from West Brom, you look at the wage bill that they probably have as well. Heavily fancied to definitely make the playoffs this year, and are just a couple of points ahead of Leicester, who have had that points deduction at the bottom. So if it wasn't for that points deduction, you'd be looking at West Brom potentially facing League One. It's mad as well for Leicester. But it's very tough, and it's tough for Jason as well to be playing in a team that seem to just be falling to defeats left, right and centre. Not by huge margins a lot of the time, but just being pimped at the line. And like I said earlier on, if you look at them at the start of the season with the squad that they have, you'd be very surprised to see them in this position.
Actually very worried about them because they are 21st, 1 point above the relegation zone, with Leicester on 35 and Oxford United on 35. So you've got 2 teams there that could get out of there and put West Brom down. So very worrying.
Mikey Johnson is now injured as well for them.
Yeah.
He's out of the playoffs as well. So I think it's frustrating, I'd say, for Jason as well, because I think he is a better player for the position and team that he's probably playing for there. But when you're playing that kind of defensive midfielder, it's hard to be a standout when you're playing in a struggling team as well.
Try to be a bit more positive. Alan Brown is with Middlesbrough. They are in second. In fourth is Ipswich, and we got a couple of players playing for Ipswich. Luke,
yeah,
all right.
Darragh O'Shea still leading by example there as well, and I think he's a player that would have been able to stay in the Premier League last year after Ipswich dropped down, and was given the armband by Kieran McKenna before the start of the Championship season. So he's someone that definitely has an eye on coming back to the English top flight. Very consistent performer, and I think something that maybe goes under the radar, he's absolutely rapid as well. Like, he gives great cover whenever I watch Ipswich as well, who, are one of the Championship teams to play more of the front foot, have a higher line, sort of that Premier League style like we saw under Kieran McKenna as well. So he's been playing well. Jack Taylor came on, I think, at the weekend for the last 5 or 10 minutes, and he's another player who'll definitely have his hand up for selection for the match in Prague. I think he's a different sort of an option, potentially more technical of a midfielder than we have in the likes of Malumbi and Knight, who are, real engines around the park. And Taylor, remember him a few years ago with Peterborough, he used to love a screamer. Remember he scored at Stamford Bridge. Casey McAteer, a bit of a worry. There was a lot of hope for Casey when he declared for Ireland. It probably was around this time last year.
And he scored against Senegal and thought he was going to kick on. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and struggled for minutes at Leicester at the start of the season. Made the move to Ipswich to hopefully get more minutes, but unused sub, I think, at the weekend again, and not really what you'd want as a winger and as an attacker to be sitting on the bench for those periods of time, especially when you thought you were moving for more minutes.
Honorary mention for anyone else in the Championship, Paul?
Not right now, no. I do think Jack Taylor could, whether he's kind of starting or not, I think he could be definitely a big player. He played his part against Hungary. And I think he's kind of been brought in as a big part. He's never really kind of got his chance, but he could be the one who potentially actually sits in Josh Cullen's position and does that job. I think so. Yeah, keep an eye on that one over there, maybe the next couple of weeks.
We don't know if Adam Ida's fully ruled out just yet, but with the shortage of strikers with Evan Ferguson, the depth chart is it's getting smaller.
Yeah.
How far away is Sinclair Armstrong?
I think he'll be included.
Yeah,
because he's been scoring. But after that, then you're kind of going, who else comes in? I did a video on it the other day. There's Owen Elding could be in. Can we entice David McGoldrick out of retirement, who's banging them in?
Would you bring back Didsey?
I would. Whether he wants to come back is a different thing.
Yeah.
I saw an interview from, I think it was the Galway game the other night, and some from, I think it was LOI Talk, and they asked Hallgrímsson, he was sitting beside him, and they videoed it, and they asked him about it, and he said, anyone who's playing well, we're going to look at them. So it'll be interesting. I don't think he'll come out of retirement, but he's one of those players that we all kind of just love because he's a maverick. He scores unbelievable goals. He's not big headed, but he's just real cool and classy the way he finishes. And there's probably an element of a lot of people think he didn't really finish his story with Ireland, and if he helped Ireland get to the World Cup, that is kind of finishing his story. So there is that kind of romanticism involved in it, but I just don't think he's going to do it. I hope and I'd love to see it, but I don't think he will. But Sammy Smodics is playing, I suppose, at Derby, so I think he'll be key as well. So as you're thinking, Troy, Sammy, so we need to keep those two fit.
Johnny Kenny be still in and around the team. I know he came on in Hungary.
Yeah, he's done well. He nearly scored.
Bolton's was a weird move, wasn't it?
Strange move, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I thought he could have went somewhere, maybe would have elevated his status a bit more, because everyone's just going, well, why would you take Kenny when you could take McGoldrick, who's scoring more?
Yeah, in the same league. That's so
the
true.
argument, you know. But yeah, obviously Kenny's younger, and he got his first goal and assist the week before last. So I suppose he's got the goal, but yeah, it's a bit of not a convincing sort of move. It's the only thing.
Yeah, so I think when we started this show a few weeks ago, we were very positive. But as we're getting closer and closer, 2 weeks out now from Czechia, is the reality dawning on us that the squad isn't in a place where we want it to be? So how are we feeling? We have Nathan Collins, who's in and out. We have Seamus Coleman, who isn't playing. We've got Liam Scales and Festi, who are both suspended for the first game. Our midfield's a bit all over the place. Evan Ferguson is out and could potentially be out of the World Cup if we do qualify. The only player who seems to be in top form that will play against Czechia is Troy Parrott. So how are we actually feeling 2 weeks out, Paul, from the Czechia game?
I think it's nothing to do with kind of, I suppose, the form or anything like that. It's just the thinness of the squad now. Like, I think that's why we're all hoping, like in November, you're kind of going, all right, if we could play the game next week, we'd probably win it because the momentum is high and that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, look, we all want us to win and we all hope we will win, but it's a bit gloomy when you keep seeing players popping up with injuries at the wrong time. You see like Evan ruled out, getting surgery. You see that and you're like, oh no, that's devastating. And it's devastating for him if we potentially get to a World Cup because we don't qualify for that many. And it's the same then with Mikey Johnston getting injured. Look, who is a player who we kind of rely on to come on as a late impact sub a lot of the time, and he does stretch teams, gets wide, he has that bit of trickery. And then you kind of take him out, and then who you replace him with? Do you bring in Sinclair Armstrong as that wide kind of player, or does Sammy Smodics fit in over there, or does so there's all of these sort of things where I think before we had an idea of how the squad might set up. Now we don't, and I think that's why maybe we're feeling a bit apprehensive. But I know that there's a big, strong belief within the squad that whatever team is put out, that they feel like they can go there and get a result, and that's based off the November games.
Luke, how are you feeling over there?
I think I'm nervous, and I think it's because, like you said there, like when it was in November, it felt like, it's ages away, it's 5 months away. I think now we're only a couple of weeks out, so it's just the prospect of how good this summer could be if we win 2 games on the bounce. And on paper, they're winnable games. Not like we're, potentially if we get past Czechia, that we're facing a prime Denmark with the likes of Kasper Schmeichel and Christian Eriksen and co. These are beatable sides.
Yeah.
And like you were saying there, Paul, if we had all of our riches to choose from, I'd be a lot more comfortable. But I think it's just nerves, and I still think that the lads will get the job done just based on that belief in the camp. I think Heimir is really confident, and I think the atmosphere and the occasion, they achieved so much in November through Troy Parrott's hat-trick that it'll be worth nothing if they don't go out. But I still have a good feeling.
Would have been great if the game was just the following week, wouldn't it?
Would have been ideal.
Who's a bigger loss, Luke? Evan or Josh? Josh Cullen.
I think Josh, just based on Troy's form and our thinness there. But I think we're still waiting to potentially see a Parrott and Ferguson alongside each other, which would have been great. But Evan isn't getting the rub of the green on the injury front really at the moment, and it's unfortunate for him. I know you lads touched on it in previous episodes. It's kind of 3 or 4 games and a little ankle niggle or whatever, and it's tough for him. But I think Josh Cullen will be a huge, huge loss. So,
all right, I'm going to ask you to do the impossible and give me your starting 11 that you think can beat Czechia. Before we get into that, do we actually know the state of the Czechia squad? Are they missing any big players? Because it feels a little bit doom and gloom here right now. But how are they looking?
So Patrick Schick's a doubt.
Yeah, that's their main striker.
Bayer Leverkusen, 13 goals this season. The top scorer in the Czechia squad. Thomas Souček's absolutely flying for West Ham, though. Obviously scored against Wicklow, Liverpool a few weeks ago.
Similar.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side.
Scored against Man United as well when they drew that game.
Yeah. So he's obviously a threat. Vladimir Sufal, we obviously had his agent and friend Stephen Hunt on a couple of weeks ago.
Isn't he?
Yeah, so doing well over there. I did see something though. I'm fairly sure they brought someone out of retirement who hasn't played in 5 years for this game. I may check out who it is.
Okay. Right. Gents, work together.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? What is your starting 11 for 2 weeks' time against Czechia?
Well, I have an idea just in my head, so just hear me out on this before we choose. So, like, I think if we went with a flat back four, okay, and we had Ryan Manning as the left side, and if we actually play Jake O'Brien at right back like he does for Everton, and that just gives the security that when we go forward up the left that we took back into a 3. And I think with Jake doing that away from home for Everton, Everton have been unbelievable away from home in terms of picking up points, and I think he can master that. Not so much at home. I think we maybe set up with the 3-5-2, but this is an away game, and I think if we went O'Brien, Collins, O'Shea, Manning, and Queeveen in goal as a back 4, I think that would allow Ryan Manning to get forward, and we could pack the midfield that way as well, in like a 4-5-1. And as the game kind of progresses, we might look to maybe go for a 4-4-2 and push another attacker or a striker up with Troy. But I don't know how you feel about that. That's just a thinking.
I like your thinking, but I just, after seeing his impact in November, I don't think you can line up without Seamus Coleman. Even though he is not playing for
He got a nick the other day against Burnley, so he wasn't even on the bench. That's my own.
Moisey needs to just fucking keep him out there, wrapped in cotton wool there. I don't know.
He's just been training.
Yeah.
How many games did he play in advance of the Portugal?
He just got a couple of minutes, like he was being brought on.
Kind of similar to what we're doing now.
Well, he's had no minutes now, but he was stoppage time. He was brought on to see a game out. Like he was playing 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there. It wasn't much.
How would you say he had a nick there a few weeks ago?
He didn't play. He must have got the nick in training.
Yeah.
So that's my only thinking about Seamus. If you take, but Jake's been playing that well at Everton, especially away from home. I know he got a red card the other week, but that was just one little moment of unluckiness and got sent off for it. But as far as being solid in that position, and we just want to kind of keep it compact, but it allows Ryan Manning to be the one to kind of get forward. And I totally hear what Luke's saying there about Coleman. Look, no one loves Seamus Coleman more than me. If he's fit, I absolutely would. But the fact is, he hasn't played a minute. So I think if you had Jake and he's reliable and he's solid in there, then I just think it allows Manning the license to get forward. And I think he's not the best defensively, but he's far better at getting forward. And from speaking to the Southampton fans, when he plays a wing back role, he's not very instrumental in games. But when he plays in the back 4 as a left back, traditional left back, he actually seems to be a lot better. So that just comes into my thinking.
Okay.
So,
right. No,
we need to agree on a formation here. So we're going 4 or 3 because if Seamus comes in, he's going to be part of the back 5.
So I'd say let's go with this. What you said for the 4, and I think 4 maybe when we're on the ball, but potentially the addition of Alan Brown to the midfield means he could maybe shift to like a right wing back role in defence, like Jake tuck in slightly alongside Collins and O'Shea. Would you be looking at that sort of way, or would you still want to defend with a 4? I
think you get another. So you say like Brown would be almost the pivot, in midfield, so the 6, rather than a Malumbi or
no. So I was only thinking. So like if you went with the 4, could you look at it like a 4-5-1, like and have Alan Brown as the wide player?
Oh, ahead of the Jake, say.
Yeah, ahead of Jake. Yeah, and then a defender you can drop. Yeah. So you could have like a Brown, Knight, Malumbi.
It's just that left wing. Then who do you? And then Smodics or something.
And then it could be like a Smodics floating with then the likes of probably a Finn Azaz and a Harris.
Yeah. That's it. So we've kind of picked it there, haven't we?
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. I think if we do that, then they kind of like they're wide, but they can tuck in as fullbacks almost. As well. I don't know how much Sammy Smodics would tuck in as a fullback on the left, so maybe we'd probably have to look at a different option there. But other than that, I think
we're lacking pace, so aren't we? Like I don't know
like Benny not playing is the only thing I'd say.
Yeah.
Again,
I still think I'd go with him though. Would you?
Over Finn Azaz?
Or you put?
I'd over probably Smodics. Could your attacking players be like Ogbeni, Azaz? Yeah, so Azaz and Ogbeni kind of either side of Paris.
Yeah, or you just took Azaz on the left hand side, almost cutting in on his right foot, which he actually had been kind of good at the likes of Plymouth and Middlesbrough. He kind of just play high and left, but you could get him to do a defensive job as well. I think for this specific game, he obviously plays with Ryan Manning at Southampton. They have a bit of an understanding, so there could be a bit of thinking in that. You take Smolix onto the bench, and then maybe he comes on for Troy if something, or comes on later on to add to that for Ogbene maybe. But Ogbene and Parrott, I think together in those 2 games have earned the right to play together.
Yeah, I agree.
And don't forget, he won the penalty for Troy with his pace over the top. Look, he's back training. He scored a goal in an under-21 game the other day, which I know is not ideal, but he's fit. So I think you could get a good 60 minutes out of him. So I think, I know we've chopped and changed a little bit, but I think that's probably the right way to go about it. Queeveen in goal, Jake right full, Collins and O'Shea in the centre back central positions, Ryan Manning left on midfield then as the holder, Malumbi,
Knight and Brown either side.
Yeah, and then
kind of your attacking players then are Azaz, Ogbene and Parrott. And like you said, the 3 of them were so heavily involved in Budapest. Azaz for the pass, for the second goal, kind of rewarding that as well. And I think there's a familiarity between that, and you've got a workman-like midfield, which substitutes having the 5 at the back. I think that's an exciting team still when you...
Yeah, I think some people might look at it on paper and go, oh, look at that midfield or whatever, but it's like, oh, you can only play with what you have. And I think the best thing is that Alan Brown's actually playing well and he's in form. But I think that is a realistic team, but it also makes sense. You could change things up and go with a 3-5-2, and you'd probably still end up with the same personnel anyway, I think.
True, yeah, but you might have like a Brown down as your right wing back, and then...
or Seamus.
Yeah, exactly.
And if Ireland win, well, they'll be playing a second game regardless. Does Liam Scales come in?
I think so. Does depend on Manning. If Manning, gets 2 Robbie Brady-like assists, it'll be tough. I think Liam's going to be left back or left wing back. I don't think he'll be near that central defence where he plays for Celtic. It's tough though. I'd like to see us a bit more front-footed at the Aviva, which is why I think Manning, Scales might not actually start either of these games. I'd like to see us more front-footed, bring the game, if we have a Denmark or a North Macedonia at home, I don't want to see us with a back 5 and 5 centre halves across our 18-yard box.
Whatever way we set up against Portugal, I think we should the home game, because we were on the front foot for that game, and I think that was probably the best performance I've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
and I was in that game so doom and gloom, going like, why are we here? This is not gonna. And then 2 unbelievable results.
Final question on this: if Ireland don't qualify, does Heimir keep his job, Luke?
We're not really blessed with options, are we? Just for those couple of games in November in Portugal, and
because he was a dead man walking before those 2 games.
He was. I just don't think who could you get in? There's genuinely no one that I think would come to us that would, like a Gus Poyet or something. I don't think that's enough.
Robbie Keane.
I don't think he'd be arsed. Would you think Robbie Keane would be interested in the international job? Unless there was someone, and I don't think there'd be money for it, unless there was a name like Trapattoni-esque, like Rafa Benitez, just to pull one. It's some Ranieri if he wants one last, something like that. Harry Redknapp.
But we also need a bit of a millionaire to help pay for
that.
I'd keep
pay
him
for the salary.
I'd keep him.
Yeah,
based on I don't think Stephen Bradley would make us a better team. I don't think the likes of Robbie Keane would come. I don't think Gus Poyet or Chris Hughton would make us a better team. So for that reason, I'd probably stick.
I like him. I think there's actually been games where I've actually been really impressed with how we set up. Now the Armenia stuff, I know he can't go out and play the game and stuff like that, but we were quite exposed in that game. I think he learned from it. We were exposed against England when we got Liam Scales got sent off. But they were the only 2 games, and I think in recent times he's the only manager that's given us something to celebrate. I think for that and that reason alone, I think the way we won those games and the way he spoke, there's an element of a bastard inside him. Although he goes around smiling and he's this, happy, friendly guy, and he is very good. I met him last week in Tala at the women's game, and he was there watching the game, and he took photos with everyone. He was friendly. He was chatting to everyone. He was even chatting to me. I said, "Are we gonna qualify?" And he goes, "We hope so. We hope so." Big smile on his face and stuff like that. There's just something I like about him, and I think obviously he's got goodwill now. But his his MO was to get us to the playoffs. So he's achieved that essentially. I know we went the wrong way around it, but he's done it. So you can't really turn around and go, he's not done the job required, because he kind of has. Like, we beat Hungary away 3-2. We beat Portugal in the same week. Two convincing results. I know it was the last gasp against Hungary, but we thumped Portugal. And I think what he learned from his mistakes by dropping the likes of Seamus and John Egan and then bringing them back in, I think was a little bit of a masterstroke, because we saw the upturn in leadership that we probably lacked. So I think he learned from his mistakes and stuff like that, and I think he is constantly kind of learning in that regard. So for me, I think he should get a new contract. Yeah.
Well, I hope this wasn't too downtrodden of an episode. I hope we're just being cautiously optimistic, maybe going forward. And fingers crossed, no more injuries over the next 2 weeks.
We're qualifying. We're beating Czechia.
Said it, Luke. You said it.
And then North Macedonia, Denmark, doesn't matter. And then we're getting through that group stage.
Fingers
round
crossed.
of 16.
Paul, Luke, thanks for joining us on Inside the Boys in Green. Chat to you next week. More insight as we lead up to that all-important playoff against Czechia.